Your mic.
Yeah, as a housekeeping matter, based on your tight schedule, which we understand, and continuous rainfall in the west, I understand that you have to get down today to be with your constituents and represent people in other ways, although you're doing a great job here. I believe we should try and see if we can meet on a Tuesday morning before Parliament, and so not tie up 2 days of the time. Mr. Zan is from out of town, and we understand the difficulties. Mr. Hales is also from Westmoreland, and we got his apology. So I'm suggesting that we meet and hold our space on a Tuesday, because the work of this committee I take very seriously.
So if it is a wish of members, we will, at this time, vote for the time or the date to be set on a Tuesday for now, because you do understand that PAAC and PAC takes precedence, also CDF, and they always take the slot of a Tuesday morning. So if there is no meeting of those three committees, then we will ask the clerk at all times to fit us in once we are having a meeting. Other than that, we have the same 10 o'clock. Right? 10 o'clock is good for everybody. Yes?
The National Work Agency and Solid Waste will be here today?
No. NWC and Digicel are the only two entities here today. And therefore, we will now have to remind the others that they do have a duty.
It is critical, Chairman, that the Work Agency and the Solid Waste should be present here today, especially with what Minister Tufton said yesterday, really dengue, and the place need to clean up. When you move around, you see dead animal on the road, and the place smell, the rubble on the road, and all kind of things on the road. What time period they are setting for the cleanup period to start?
We will ask the clerk to speak directly, to write to them, and to get a time, a date as to when they will be present with us to give us a report and update, and for them to answer questions from this committee.
So did they send a valid reason why they're absent today? Because the Work Agency and the Solid Waste are the most important one. I know that the Water Commission is important and so forth. But there are still areas that are blocked.
So
the cleanup exercises.
So the
very
NWA,
important.
we'll write to the NWA, they were written to. We haven't had a response from them. We got a response from them. We hope that we will be able to have them next week, because I got a response from the ED of NWA to say that there is a meeting clash of another meeting that he is a member of. And so he was asking if we could move the Wednesday meeting.
No, but Chairman, I don't accept that, because there are directors at the National Work Agency can fit in for the CEO. I don't see the reason why the CEO have to be present while you have directors who could be able to answer all the questions.
So this is a reply from, yeah, I have to read it. It says, thank you for considering regarding the date to appear. The PAJ will participate in an official opening NWA extensive engaging post-hurricane recovery activity, which will inform its report. In that regard, the agency will regrettably not be able to attend the committee next sitting on November 12th. Notwithstanding, a report from both agencies will be submitted on November 14th as requested. Thank you in advance for your confirmation of receipt. All right. What I've been made just now to understand is that that meeting was set before our meeting. And so they are still on the books to be with us next meeting, but they will send in a report by the 14th of November, which is this Friday.
Can you repeat the section from what, the meeting that the CEO will be attending? What meeting? What meeting?
They have a cruise ship terminal on November 12th, which is today.
What it is?
Sorry?
Cruise ship what? Cruise ship what?
Post-hurricane recovery activity. So they were already slated for that day, for this day, to be at that meeting.
Chairman, I travel all the way from Clarendon to attend a meeting here. That the people elect me as a representative to be here to do the people's business. And I think it is unacceptable that you're saying that the National Work Agency is saying that they put that over.
No, they are not saying that. At the time that our request went to them, they already had committed to this meeting.
No,
and so,
I'm just saying, Chairman.
No, but we have to be, remember, we have to be fair. If they had given their commitment, we had said to them, how long would it take for you to put a report together to meet with us? And we had given them 2 dates, this November 12th and next week, Wednesday. They have chosen to come next week, Wednesday, because they knew they had already made an appointment for today at a different venue. No, so we're saying that we have to give them...
Chairman, I'm not going to accept the apology because you have directors at the National Work Agency can attend a meeting. It is crisis time now. It is crisis time.
Which port the terminal in Ochoa's pier is just as important.
You are telling me that the pier is more important than people to go to their house?
Excuse me?
You are telling me that it is important.
You heard me say that?
No, but that is you're saying that it's important.
No, I didn't say that.
But you're saying that is important.
Remember, I did not say that. I am saying to you that they had made an appointment to be at this meeting.
Yes, but Chairman, I'm telling you I have area cut off in my constituency right now. And the National Work Agency need to do something about it, that the JPS can go and put up the light pole, and I can't get anything out of them. I am not going to accept the apology.
Okay.
I am not going to accept it.
Okay.
It is unfair and unkind.
No, it's
you
not.
Directors.
No, member,
we are
not going to quarrel over it, member, but you're being unkind because I am saying to you that we from this committee had given them 2 dates.
But Chairman, at the invitation that I signed, it says that the National Work Agency will be at this meeting. The email that went out.
No, show me that.
The first one.
Show me.
The first one.
Show that to me.
The first
because
one that
I did not sign
all
that.
The agencies.
No.
It shows the agencies that will be here.
No, member. Please bring that email. Show me that email, because that's not what it was.
Don't the chairman would say that all the agencies who were supposed to be attending this meeting?
We had given the agencies 2 dates, this week and next week. Choose one because we know.
Right. So, Chairman, let me ask a question. The report that they give to the Prime Minister about the damage, it would take another report to bring to this committee?
I don't know.
Well, something is wrong, you know. Something is wrong, and I'm not going to accept that, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we, before that last exchange, had agreed that we would try and use Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays for our meeting time. Is it possible that we can bring forward that meeting to the 18th and not next Tuesday? And then we would, I understand Mr. Zan's position, I understand what you have said, and we can go forward because we have a lot of ground to cover.
The 18th is next week, Tuesday. And I said to you, if PAC and PAAC or CDF wishes to have a meeting, then the Tuesday morning is always made available for them. And so we would stick with the 19th just for now. The clerk will check, and if there is nobody asking for the 18th, then he will ask that we be fitted for Tuesday morning, the 18th.
So with that and Mr. Azan's comments, I would like to ask...
I didn't hear Mr. Azan's comment.
Pardon me?
I didn't hear Mr. Azan's comment.
No, previous to my intervention.
Okay.
So, so please now. I'm also going through the minutes where we had mentioned the importance of meeting with the Ministry of Finance, their procurement department. If we had not said that, that was the intent, and the intent now is for us to meet with the head of the procurement division in the Ministry of Finance, whoever that individual is, because we would like, now that we have received this information, to understand what their thought process is in going forward with the procurement process. What is their advice to the Ministry of Finance, to government, and I use the word advice, because in this crisis, looking at what has to be done, we have to look at the procurement process, how quickly it works, how quickly it has worked or failed to work in the past. So I would like to make that request now.
Noted. Any other comment? Any other comment from the minutes?
Chairman, I see in the minutes, and I recall being very specific on two programs, the Spark program and the Bridge program, which are properly referred to in the minutes. Will we be having a report from the National Work Agency on those two programs, date of policy, funding, and what has taken place? Because if, the procurement of those two projects, to me, I would like a little stronger understanding, and I hold back my judgment at this time.
So, member, the report is coming in to us by the 14th, which is this Friday. And so we hope that it comes and it addresses the matter that you're speaking of. If not, I'll ask the clerk to ask him to do an amendment to the report and bring that to us also on Tuesday morning.
Thank you, sir.
Any other matter?
Chairman, the minutes here. Because the minutes said that the National Work Agency would be invited to this meeting.
Chairman, this indicating that it's based on their availability.
The minutes is quite clear.
Tell me the section you are at.
Page 2. It is in bold writing.
Third paragraph from the bottom.
And if you read the minutes, the paragraph that you are at, it's based on the remit of the committee as outlined in Standing Order 73C. The chairman noted that the agencies responsible for the country's infrastructure would be invited to provide updates on the status of the infrastructure within their mandate in relation to the damages following Hurricane Melissa. The following entities were identified for invitation: Flow Jamaica, Digicel Jamaica Limited, National Work Agency, National Water Commission, Jamaica Public Service, and the Port Authority of Jamaica. The chairman sought input from members on whether the local authority municipal corporations should be invited to inform the committee on the situation in their respective area.
Okay, so let me ask
Hold.
you.
What we did mention was that we weren't going to be able to take all of them on one day. And so we would have asked those who could come this week as against those who are coming next week.
No, but before, Chairman, you said that the National Work Agency was asked 2 days ago to prepare a report.
No, not 2 days ago.
What you said before?
Don't put words in my mouth and don't say what I don't say.
What you
I
said
did not say
before?
anything about that.
What about the 2 days?
I
said
mentioned
that?
nothing about 2 days. I don't know where you concoct that from.
We didn't hear about 2 days.
2 dates they were supposed to
2 days.
choose from
days.
one, right?
Okay.
So either you choose this week, which Digital and NWC has chosen this week Tuesday, this week Wednesday, as against those who are taking next week Wednesday. And NWA chooses to take next week Wednesday. So just cut them the little slack until then.
Cut after what?
Cut them the little slack until then.
Chairman, you know, when you have to be answering all the questions
Yes?
and you can't get the agencies them to answer,
Yes?
they call you the political representative. And the political representative can't hear from.
And I have the same problem even now. I said it rained last night, and the entire community is flooded in Montego Bay. I am not there because at this meeting, I can't get NWA on the line just the same, but I'm saying to you that they had chosen to come next week Wednesday, and so we have to just wait until then.
Okay, sir, no problem.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Member.
Mr. Chairman. No, I feel Member Azan's frustration, but I think there was a little miscommunication and misunderstanding. And we're now all on the same page. The Works Agency will be here next week to answer questions that will be presented to them by members of this committee.
And let us also thank Mr. Member Azan to be here this morning.
and yeah, he's under some pressure in his constituency, like all of persons who are mostly affected by this storm. And just for clarity of the record, Chairman, on page 1 where you list the members' attendance and members who are absent, I notice on page 1 it only has Heroy Clark as a member of Parliament, nobody else. I just want that to be corrected for the minutes.
Who had attended?
On page 1 where you have the members who were in attendance and were absent, it only has you as a member of Parliament, but to my sure knowledge that James Robertson is a member of Parliament.
Oh, you mean,
also.
all right.
So I want that to be corrected for the public record.
We'll have it corrected.
Unless he made some changes that
We'll definitely have it corrected.
Thank you, Chairman.
And the clerk apologized for that. So, can we now have the confirmation of the minutes? Moved by...
There's one more correction. On page 1, number 6, both sides of the government, I think the G is supposed to be a capital G, the common G, should be a capital G for government.
Okay.
And I will move for the, well, I wasn't here, so yeah.
So moved by MP Member James Robertson, seconded by Member Dwayne Smith. We can now have the agencies being invited in. Where is the water?
NWC.
Yeah. Oh,
So we'll invite the solid waste management
yeah.
and
NWA.
yeah, no, NWA was already there. They had gotten the info for what do you call it? For
Let me say good morning to members from, I take it at this time, both entities, Digicel Jamaica Limited and National Water Commission. Okay, so in front of me, I have Miss Talia Gibson, Senior Director, Water Policy and Monitoring in the Water Policy and Monitoring Branch, Dr. Philippa Campbell Francis, Vice President Operation, Acting, Mr. Charles Buchanan, Communication and Public Affairs Manager, Mr. Delano Williams, Corporate Public Relations Manager. Digicel Limited, Mr. Stephen Morad, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Anthony Barrows, Head of Operation, Mr. Bijan Reynolds, Chief Technical and Innovation Officer. I see two other persons, Mrs. Joy Clark from Montego Bay. I take it she's in the corporate office now. She's my neighbor. And we did not get your name, sir. Beyond Spence. Okay. What I'll do, I'll ask Mr. Murad, you can now introduce your team, starting with yourself. Mike, yeah, Mike.
Morning.
Bring it to you.
Oh, sorry. Morning, thank you very much. So I'll just introduce my team. So I guess start with myself. So I'm Stephen Murad. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Digicel Jamaica, as you rightly said, and I'll start at the end. So Anthony Barrows, he's our head of our network operations. So think of Anthony in more of the field operations. I think that's probably the easiest way, and Anthony will talk later. Bjorn is our CTIO, so think about it from a network perspective at the top level. He runs the whole technology piece for all of Digicel Jamaica. Bjorn, next to him as well, is my legal and regulatory director, so we'll work very closely with OUR, Spectrum Management Authority, etc. And Joy Clark, as you rightly said, Joy is my director of corporate and government relations. So she was recently promoted into that seat and works in the head office, but still clearly has both feet in Montego Bay.
Thank you very much. Before you member, we are here this morning because the world knows that we have had one of the most devastating hurricanes in history that hits Jamaica and hits Jamaica hard. Digicel, as one of our telecommunication service provider, is here with us, and we have quite a number of questions. You would have sent us a report. Just this morning we got it, and so bear with us. Members have not gone through, I guess, but they have some burning questions that I know very well that you're competent and capable enough to answer. And so the first of the bat is member from East St. Thomas, member James Robertson. West, sorry, have me excused. West St. Thomas. You have the floor.
No, Mr. Chairman, I just did not get the full outline of Mr. Spence's responsibilities at Digicel, because we have to understand. So I want to hear a little bit about Mr. Spence's background further. I didn't hear. My apologies, because it's very important.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Legal and Regulatory Director. So I manage the legal and regulatory affairs at Digicel. So from the regulatory component, engaging with the OUR, the SMA, respective stakeholders. So you have a question?
You may be surprised at the ignorance of some of us. Please just spell out those things slowly for us so we can capture them. Some of us, you may very well be surprised at the level of ignorance.
No problem. So from the legal component, I manage the legal affairs, the commercial engagements, contract law, dispute settlements, etc. From the regulatory component, I also manage the regulatory affairs. So, being at telecoms, we have respective licenses that we have to manage. We have to ensure that we are all compliant with those requirements. And also, we are a registered entity. So, of course, we also have to adhere to the Companies Act. So I'm responsible for that legal component as well. So that's just a nutshell of the gambit of the scope.
Indicate the OUR, and then you went on to a few
SMA?
other
Oh, yes.
government. Yeah,
Yes.
go
So
slowly
you have
through that part of it, please. You will understand the importance.
Okay, so with the OUR, we have respective license, data licenses, carrier licenses that we have to maintain. The Spectrum Management Authority, of course, as a telecom, we operate under certain spectrum bands. We have to ensure under the SMA Act that we are using those bands very efficiently. So I work with Bjorn Reynolds to ensure that that is done, that we are in adherence with that, with the Act and the laws.
So, Chairman, I was just trying to get at it. So it's really the OUR and the Spectrum Management Authority, those two?
No, not just
regulatory.
two. We have the Betting, Gaming, and Lottery Commissions from a marketing perspective, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to hear that part as well, given the infrastructure part. But that's, yeah, Broadcasting Commission as well, because we do D+, Digital Plus. So those are other regulatory bodies that we engage with.
So at this time, Mr. Murad, we'll ask you to bring us or take us through the report that you would have said to us.
Thanks everybody for your time. Digicel Jamaica is very happy to be here, and we're very happy Brandon reached out to take an opportunity. As you can imagine, the first couple of weeks have been something that not many of us have really experienced, and certainly being here in Jamaica, whilst I have been in the Caribbean a long time and been through many Category 5s, I've not felt the devastation, and our hearts go out to particularly the people who've lost their lives and the families also as well. And I think that's the impact of being on the ground is very tough for everybody. We're also a very large employer as well, so everybody feels it, not just in their own homes, but friends and family and relatives in particular in the west of country as well, St. Elizabeth, etc. So I'll just run through you quickly. So from an agenda perspective, I'm just going to give a quick executive summary. I'm going to give you what day one looked like. So I think it probably just, and I'll try and hopefully just relay what that looked like, and then I'll move through a few slides to get us to, excuse me, where we are as of the 11th. But I'll pause on that slide because I think it's important that I articulate that this is a moving story. It's not, I might give you a snapshot on the 11th, but 2 hours later it can change dramatically. And I'll try and give you some sense of what that might look like in our world. Just hopefully that will be, and then obviously people can obviously ask questions. I'll talk about what we've been doing from a customer perspective, and probably no great surprise, myself and Joy are also directors of the Digicel Jamaica Foundation. So we'll talk about the humanitarian piece that we do. Joy is actually 2 jobs. He's also the chairman of the Digicel Foundation. I'm obviously a director as well. So we'll touch on that as well. But when I pause, I'm going to ask Bjorn and Antin, because I want to touch on a couple of weeks in, then maybe a short-term view. In my head, short-term is probably over the next couple of months. And then I'll probably come back to maybe what are the next, I'm going to call it the middle of the road view as opposed to long-term view, because we're still in a huge amount of assessment. Network operations, as you can imagine, are very fluid at the moment, and especially with no a huge amount of commercial power. We're still at the mercy of that. And it's not just about the power, it's also about the polls. So I know that probably sounds obvious, but we will touch on what that looks like as well. I'll just give you, in case you're not sure, the Jamaica business is the largest entity in the whole of Digicel Group, the largest contributor by a significant mile. Yes, we were the first entity, You know, 19th of April 2001 we launched. It's almost 25 years, but we are still the largest entity, which is why we still have our head offices downtown on the waterfront. So on the 8th floor, my boss sits, lives in Jamaica, is here in Jamaica. So they are very much part of the fabric of the Jamaica business as well. So that's really important because they get to feel this, you know, without no pun intended, but certainly I think that's really important as well. So we have the support. So we have our BCM, which is a business continuity management. So we, as you can imagine, the hurricane season starts on the 1st of June and ends at the end of November. So we prep all of the time. I guess if Bjorn and Anthony had the floor, they'd talk about their network as a living entity. We don't just wait for the 1st of July and then start everything. It's every single day. Every single day things happen in the network. You know, things will break. That is a reality. There could be a truck accident, fibre break, you know, somebody decides they're a landscape gardener and chops the fibre. All of those things the guys have to deal with every single day. But this is obviously on a huge different level of scale. So I'm just going to talk about the... let me just skip on to the slide, sorry. So obviously, as everybody knows, we had a Category 5 hurricane, because I know that's the top-rated category that we're seeing. So I would have been through Irma and Maria in 2017, so Turks and Caicos, BVI, and Dominica. I was the regional CEO for Digicel in those days, albeit based here in Jamaica as well. So very tough and seeing what they're... But I use my own example of seeing and being on the ground of what that looked like when I was on the ground in Middle Quarter, Black River. We went to right by Catherine Hall Primary in Montego Bay. We went into Duncan's. We went into Falmouth. You know, with my colleagues with us, and certainly the difference for me really hit home dramatically. And the difference of the devastation is, and I know obviously we went through Hurricane Beryl also as well last year, but this is in a different scale. And clearly we know all of the western parishes felt the brunt of it, and we know every parish couldn't escape from the devastating impact. But I'll probably just give you the 4 key pillars of when we have to recover. So the first thing, which might be obvious, is power. So for us, that will be fuel and generation. So generators on a tower. So if there's no commercial power, we need some way of powering the network with the radio antennas. That, you know, we need to find a way to power all of the infrastructure. So for us, in particular, Anthony and the team, is about mass fuel generation. Digicel is a telecoms company, which might seem obvious me saying that. We are not a mass fuel distribution company. But last year, Hurricane Beryl taught us how to become a mass fuel distribution company. We segmented the country into 5 main distribution points to find ways to bring fuel to the site. And we have a lot of sub-distributors as well. So we'd have to use, you know, Petrojam, Rubis, Petcom, Johnson's. You know, Anthony would have a very strong relationship with all of the main ones that you would know. But obviously all of the sub-fuelers, they may be a one-man band because some of our towers are up a mountain, which can only be accessed with feet and a jerry can. That is the reality, because we need to serve all parts of Jamaica, so wherever the communities are, so we have to find a way to get the fuel to the tower. So fuel is critical. Assessment. We have 925 towers. We have the largest significant footprint in Jamaica. We also have double the base size, so that might seem obvious that we've got the largest tower infrastructure, but 925 towers, and I'm safe to say that the team have assessed all of those, and that's critical because you need to know what next. So you've got what I'm doing now, but you need to know what next. What do I need to order? You know, how many towers are down? We've seen 37 towers down. So that's down. Not operational, they're on the floor. Now, you probably know as you're driving around, you see different kinds of towers. And we use towers in a generic sense. You've got lattice towers, which may be the big, huge towers that you might see, red and white, ones that you're more used to. But we have a lot of rooftop towers, or I guess Bjorn might call them fillers. So they would be smaller infrastructure, so you can imagine each tower signaling into each other as well. And good news is the majority of our towers that are down are actually rooftops. So from a rebuild and reattach, as long as the integrity of the roof is in a good position, it's easier for us to rebuild those. We have all of the equipment here as well, so it's not like I need to go somewhere else and find the equipment, etc. as well. We also have some big lattice towers as well, so we can rebuild those if those ones go down. We do have a Tower Co company that's based here in Jamaica, and I'm not sure how familiar with how the Tower Co operates. So Flo would have all of the towers with a company called Phoenix Towers International, PTI. All over the world, they're a Tower Co. That's their core business. They've roughly got just over half of our towers they operate for us. What we do is make sure the radios are on them, so they own the tower, but we obviously operate the radios and the fixing, etc. as well. So some of those towers that are down are actually PTI's towers or Phoenix Towers International, so they will be replacing those as well. And we have a daily call with our colleagues at PTI throughout all of this as well. Fibre. So you've got, in essence, if I can make it more simple, you've got fibre that runs to the site, the mobile tower, to bring the traffic to the tower, and then obviously emanate through the radios out to your mobile phone. And then you've got fibre, which in essence is bringing data to your home or to your business from a fixed services perspective as well. So assess, repair, splice, as they would call it in the fibre world, what you need to do to fix those. So look at where we are as well. And then site restoration. Or alignment. So as you can imagine, with winds, greater than 180 miles an hour at the time, those will get misaligned, and they need to be able to get good, strong line of sight and point to each other, because some of them hop between each other. Think of it as like a popcorn machine. So as the kernels pop, it emanates out. So we have to climb the tower. So we have a specific job in this industry. It's called a rigger. They will climb the tower and they will realign the radios where it was. We take a picture before any event that's going to hit us, so we know exactly where they should be pointing. So we take a snapshot every single day in real time, so we know where they need to go back to. That's also critical as well. So it's obviously it's not like it's not a finger in the air when they're doing that work. So that enables us to make some quick restoration, because it may be just tower alignment. So if the tower's up and the power's working, that might be our generator. Granted, it might not be JPS. So we can realign the tower and get service working as well. Obviously, if the towers are down, maybe the radios are blown off the tower and destroyed and damaged, then we go into hard down, as we would call it, and fix. So again, radios, reattach the radios and get the power working, and in essence get the mobile network in. So we will do some quick fixes along the way. We obviously look at what the impact of the infrastructure is as well. I'll just skip on. So biggest one, which might be obvious for us, is we need the commercial power. So we need the commercial grid to be working to operate on our sites. So we have generators on about almost 70% of those sites. We have a generator, but as you can imagine, that's business as usual for us. We have a generator on these sites because we know there will be outages in normal times. Load shedding from JPS, there'll be we'll go off air. Those things happen every single day. That is just a fact of life. But we need to restore commercial power as quickly as possible. Generators are not meant to run for days, weeks, months on end, because you need to refuel them, mass fuel distribution, and we need to service them because those things will break. So it may be a community has service today, but for whatever reason the generator can break. That is a fact, so we have to send a field engineer to go over there. We also may run out of fuel, and it may be not the easiest site to get to. It could take us half a day to get up somewhere. And I'll touch on some other issues that we have with that, but critical that we get those things up and running. And some of these may be obvious too, so apologies. So pole infrastructure, wherever you drive outside of Kingston, you see mass pole infrastructure damage, whether it be the wooden poles or the concrete poles. They're either snapped, fallen over, or about to fall over as well. That is the conduit, so what I would refer to as the transport network. So between locations, as you run along, it could be the North Coast Highway, wherever it is, you have the electricity poles, and on those electricity poles will be run cables. So the fibre will run along those, and that's either terminating a mobile tower or a a POP, as we might call it, a point of presence, and think of it as like a small mini brain. It's a bit like the human body with all the arteries flowing to main brains that send out messages and signals to customers, in essence. Think of it like that. So getting the pole infrastructure up, Jamaica has very little underground infrastructure. And again, apologies, that might be obvious to most people. We have very little UG or underground infrastructure to put utility service. So we rely heavily on the pole network as well. Also, and I just want to touch on the transport network, and I have got a slide which probably depicts it better than I might describe it. So to certain parts of the country, so we lease because we have a very long-term, decades relationship with what would have been Cable and Wireless and all of the entities that would now, in essence, be Liberty Latin America and branded here in Jamaica as Flow. So we lease the transport network. Basically, we have two rings. We have one ring that runs north. So as you imagine, you go from Caymanas and it runs around like Flatbridge and around the bush, forgive me, and it ends up on the North Coast Highway and a run all the way around to Montego Bay. And we have a south ring as well, which is South Manchester, running down through St Elizabeth, all the way around the country, Westmoreland, Harlow, and in essence joins up together. There's a slide that shows it pictorially as well in the presentation. So we lease that. The south ring is pretty much destroyed. It's on the ground. The infrastructure is on the ground. So think of it from a Digicel only perspective at the moment. So I lease that network to bring traffic, data, services to all of our customers in the south. I'll stick on the south for the moment. And if that network is down, I've got no way of trafficking that network today. So I'll probably ask you to hold that thought because we'll come on to that a bit further on, because I think there'll be if I was there, I would want to know a bit more about that. But I just want that to hold. So immediately, I've got no way of, because that network is down. And I'm talking about day one now, because I think that's really important. I know we're almost 2 weeks away from that as well. We don't have a clear timeline from our colleagues at Flow on when that will be rebuilt. And I use the word rebuilt because that is the absolute reality of life. It needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. That's going to take time for them to rebuild it. And Bjorn and Anthony can touch on what we've been doing in the interim, because clearly we can't just stop and stand still and hope for the best. And we have been recovering services in St Elizabeth, Santa Cruz. You can see some of those services have been coming, and I'll ask the chaps to talk about that as well. Then site assessment. So I talked about making sure we get around all of the sites to make sure that we understand and we know what we need to do. What do we need to repair? What do we need to fix? What equipment do we need to bring from the warehouse? And obviously reinstall that as well. I will touch on it in a slide, but certainly theft and vandalism hasn't gone away, and probably no great surprise, it's actually increased, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit further on. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on that section on sites is what I call unintentional damage. So as JPS are trying to go very, very fast, so replanting the poles, they are damaging what I would call as a fragile infrastructure today. Because if you think about it, the cable that we've had to run has got nowhere to go. It is, quite frankly, it's in the bush. That is a fact of life. So it is a very fragile, thin thread that a lot of the network infrastructure across the country, is held on by as well. So every day there is network damage, generally through rebuild. It could also be clearing of the roads. So if a road needs to be cleared, and move stuff out the way. Forgive me, and this is not me really, having a go at the NWA or JPS. I understand the country is hurting and we need to recover quickly, but that is damaging. So we get a lot of phone calls and messages. Somebody says, "Stephen, I was up yesterday, and I was up all through the storm, but what happened? What's wrong with you? What's happening?" And that will happen, and it's happening every day. Even in Kingston, we had 2 massive fibre breaks in Kingston yesterday. So this is yesterday morning. 2 truck incidents hit both of our rings, so we own our own rings in Kingston and Spanish Town and St Catherine, so we own all of that. 2 trucks, pretty much at the same time, hit both of those rings and snapped all of the fibre. Immediately takes all of your home internet customers offline, all of your businesses offline that use our services as well. That is what we face with every single day. You know, that's not hurricane related, but that's the reality. And of course, you know, customers will get very upset because we live, as we now know, in a society of no patience or less than zero patience. And I'm sure your constituents, when you get the same kind of messages I do, probably the same people WhatsApping you, I'm sure. We can share memoirs later. And the last thing I'll just touch on this slide, because I think it's very important, is the day one. Day one is mobile network. We've only got 30% of that infrastructure working on day one. So I guess for map terms, that's Kingston, St Andrews and St Catherine, a bit of Portland and a bit of St Thomas generally. So everything else, sorry, a little bit of Mandeville, that was probably a bit unfair, but everything else is offline on day one. On the fixed side, so our home internet customers, well, we've got 59% of those customers online. Now, that might seem, you're thinking, well, why is that much higher than the mobile network? And that's because most of our fixed customers, we only launched our fixed services pretty much 10 years ago. In 2015, we launched the DigiPlay service. You might be more familiar with that brand name when we launched it. That is really centred around St Catherine, Kingston, St Andrews. We only launched in Montego Bay around the first customer came on in June, believe it or not. So we've been building out that network in Montego Bay. But most of our customers, which is why not a huge amount of swathe of those customers are offline. The reason that they're 41%, if you think of it like that, is there's no power in the house, so they're off, or there's been a fibre break, which obviously we'll go on attend to and fix. Similar from the business fibre network, just over half, 54%. Same kind of principle would apply as well on that phase as well. I'm just going to talk next around, and hopefully you can see. I had to put them as separate maps because otherwise the dots are probably confusing. So you can see right-hand side, sites up, and you can see how it's centred around the country. And obviously we know where it hit, and as it moved further west, we can see that. But then obviously we can see the left-hand map shows all of the sites down this is obviously on day one. And clearly, as you can imagine, we get the all clear. So I would have chatted to Minister Dana Morris-Dixon, called her up, said, can we get the all clear for ModPem? No, Stephen, give me 5 minutes. We get the all clear. Anthony, Bjorn, got the all clear. Let's get the troops on the ground. Everybody's saying it's safe to do so with caution and care because we know all of the things that happened around that. Look at the generator network. We have automatic failovers, which one came on, which one didn't come on, because sometimes those can fail as well. So we need to go physically visit the generator, make sure it's got fuel. Generally, these tanks could run for maybe 3 or 4 days before we need to recycle and get the fuel in as well. So make sure we look at that. We also understood that the transport network was down from our colleagues in Flow. And then obviously I talked about the fueling distribution and the sites as well. Beyond this, because I think this really just is a simple pictorial view of the Flow transport network. So as you can see, we start in Kingston, we run all the way around the country. So this is the aerial, predominantly aerial transport network. They do have some underground infrastructure, but on the whole, most of that network is aerial. So susceptible to everyday life, taxis, lorries, landscape gardeners are going to chop it, but obviously now in a catastrophic event as a Cat 5 hurricane, if it's aerial, you know that it's going to see some serious infrastructure damage, and obviously that's what happened is. But I think, credit to Bjorn and Anthony, what they did, in particular for the north, because that was easier for us to do on day one, is to drag our own transport cable all the way along the North Coast Highway and work our way into in essence, to Bevan Avenue, right into where NWC, our colleagues, have a depot in there as well. And we use that site is one of the main brain hubs of Montego Bay, feeding business customers, residential customers as well. So drag that fibre. That was a very difficult task, I don't mind telling you. The weather has not been kind to us lately. You know, that's not been great as well. So that's hindered some of the progress. Fibre breaks. Some intentional, which I will touch on as well, and some unintentional as well. But think about it. If you look on the side of the road where Sharkies is, that fibre is running in the bushes all around there because we couldn't wait. I can't wait for Flow to restore that one and that one because our customers need us today. You know, they couldn't care less if I lease it from Flow or not. That doesn't matter. They just want the service, Stephen, and I want it now. So we dragged the fibre night and day all the way over to Trip. Trying to restore services whilst we're pushing our colleagues in Flow to also restore the transport network. And just to be clear, they've not started on restoring anything in the south on that transport network. So we are no clear timelines. That is is obviously a well communicated to. We interact also not with just Stephen Price locally and Michael. We also interact with our colleagues in the Liberty Group office, which is based between Miami and Panama. So we interact with them. We have a call with them every single day to find out what's going on, estimated time of recovery. Because I'm a big believer in over communicating. You know, so if you follow our WhatsApp channel, we've now got over 10,000 people on there. It's a quick, easy information. We obviously use social media, but every single day I send a report out, which some of you may have got hold of. It goes out to pretty much anybody. From PM, municipalities, MERS, JCF, JDF. I try to disseminate that immediate every afternoon that comes out to give you an unfiltered view of where we are and what we're doing and what we've restored and what we're doing next also as well. Flow also have what's called festoons. So circling some parts of the island. So we think about just above Montego Bay, just above Negril, just around Black River area, and then just sort of outside of Ochi. So that would be a subterranean festoon. So it enables them to take traffic off the island and come back round to the main hub brain. So you think about how does Jamaica get its data? You have the Columbus link, which has been around for decades, brings two fibres, in essence, in from Miami and from New York. Miami is the primary. It's the closest hop to Jamaica. So the highest speed capacity link is Miami. So that's what we use every single day. If that breaks, now there's not one fibre, so I know that may sound like it, but I'm describing it as one, but it's not. It's multiple fibres. But if we get breaks, then eventually it can fail over into New York if something happens as well. And that has a wet side, which is obviously what's under the sea, and you obviously have the dry side, which is obviously it comes onto the island and then it'll run off, and we take a feed from that into our Caymanas data centre towards the central brain of the operation of Digicel. We do lease some capacity from Flow at that top end of Montego Bay, if you see it on the map though, so we use some of the festoons there as well. We've asked them to, would they sell us, because it's a commercial agreement, would they sell us access to the ones at Negril, because we want to get those areas of Hanover, Westmoreland and St Elizabeth back on that. We know that the landing station in St Elizabeth is completely destroyed. So we know they're going to have to rebuild that. So we're on a call with them last night, give us a price to allow us to terminate our fibre in there, to bring the data out of the country and around. We need to manage and get those sites back on air as quickly as possible and to get people using their network. We also have what we call microwave links. So it's not the most modern technology, but it's helped us. It helped us last year. That needs line of sight, and it needs to be able to hop from site to site. It's not going to give you the high-powered speed that you find on your normal LTE network. I'm sorry, but that's just not the case. But what it will do is something more akin to, if people remember 3G, if you probably remember before we got to LTE. So I can make a voice call and I can do some data sessions, but not like you would see that you're used to, doing your YouTube, your Netflix and your TikTok. It just isn't going to do that. So we've been restoring that and realigning those also as well. We're not waiting for Flow to restore that because we can't. So we're having to use some of our own technology on the sites as well. And I reached out to Starlink, and I ordered 160 Starlinks to, in essence, give us a similar experience on the mobile towers of what our microwaves will do as well. So we've been installing them. We've got 60 on island, and we've been installing them predominantly in the worst hit areas. Montego Bay, all the way around, Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth. We've been deploying them there. 100 more arrive in customs today, and we'll get them cleared, we'll get them activated and set up, and then we'll go and climb the towers, because obviously it's not the one that you see on people's cars. This is a much larger infrastructure. It has to sit right on top of the tower, so we need to climb it safely, and we need to, forgive me, point it up and get the connection. So that will provide some connectivity, and has been doing, so that is that's certainly an opportunity learned for us around using satellite technology in a different way that we've traditionally used satellite technology. Yes, I know it can't give us the same bandwidth and capacity, absolutely. But today, all I'm waking up every single day is thinking about how can I enable somebody to make a phone call and say, I'm okay, please help me, whatever. So we're really fixated on that as well. The SpaceX team, as the mothership from Starlink, we're awaiting some generators from them as well, and we've ordered more generators. They offered us some generators as well, so we're just waiting on some timelines on when they will come. But we've obviously ordered more generators because we're seeing generators break beyond, I call it BER, beyond economical repair, which means we just need to replace it. So the generator at Bevan Avenue in Montego, which I talked about, is one of the main brains. So we just replaced it with a brand new generator. We didn't want to take any chances. And forgive me for saying, but the billboards actually saved that site. All of the billboards, the advertising billboards, fell back on that site and actually protected that site. The one in Catherine Hall, which if where the football stadium is, literally just round the corner from Montego Bay United football stadium. Forgive me, I'm not very tall, even in my shoes, but it would have been over my head. The water height and the mud damage in that mini brain that we have there is just filled with mud. And unfortunately, Joy would tell you, the last couple of days, the water has been rising again, in particular that area at Montego Bay. So we're seeing more and more flood damage, heaven forbid. I know the commander talked about it in the OPM briefing he gave yesterday, that the floodplains are overflowing, and any bit of rain now he's seeing that jump up as well. I'll move on, and I'll try and go quickly, so that'd be good, and you can obviously take some time to ask questions. Vandalism. So I would have wrote to Minister Vaz on Saturday night, and I called the Commissioner. We're seeing a huge spike, unfortunately, in vandalism to our network, which is, I break it into little strands. So you've got potential copper theft. We don't have copper in the fibre network. It's plastic and glass, I'm sorry. But people see a black cable, and I'll chop it and see what happens, and then I'll go 300 yards down the road to the same cable and chop it again, which means a double fibre break. Brilliant. Because I don't know if you know, when you splice a fibre, you only see one break. Because it's light, you send the light through. So you only see one break, so you go and fix the break, test it, and you go, oh no, there's another break, 200 yards. You get to that one, and then you can see where I'm going. So it's a very painful process. And what I touched on at the start, those customers would have been up and using the service. And all of a sudden, they're ringing me up, and I'm apologising profusely because they say, well, I'm up. But like, what happened? Or even one of the, the university professors at UWE, he's ringing me up, and he lives in Red Hills, and he said, I can see him outside. I can't get the JCF quick enough because he's chopping down your cable. But can you come out and fix it for me? Absolutely. So I'm even getting real time. Fuel, which again, so all of our generators operate on diesel. Kemp's Hill is probably, an example, we can give. So that's 120 gallons of fuel, which is a lot of fuel because those tanks are huge. But that's not an easy site to get to. Those guys, it took them 7 hours for us to fill that up, in very difficult terrain. We've had lots of landslides and, managing it, but those guys are risking life and limb to keep the generators going, to keep the customers online, to keep the sites going, and then the next day we get a warning, there's no fuel in the tank, and we're like seriously. So the Commissioner has been very supportive, in particular the CTOC division. We have had some successes this year, but we're seeing that ramp up dramatically as well, and all that does, it stops us recovering people, because we've got to go back to it. So we've got to stop the recovery of the people who don't have service to go back and refix what it is. So, and I know we've been pushing, for harsher penalties in terms of legislation, but that we need to really change. I think it's also from a society perspective, we need everybody pushing. I have a "if you see it, say it," which I know is not easy for everybody, but I know the Commissioner has been, personally been very supportive of trying to help us stop this madness acts of vandalism. We know there's going to be accidental damage. That happens after every major event. In any part of the world where I've worked in, there will be accidental damage. We can deal with that. We can sleep easy at night. We just got to go and fix it. But this stuff is just intentional, and it's just not acceptable. I just want to touch on there. So those pictures are actually Catherine Hall. So that is the mud on the equipment. That specific equipment there is what manages our home internet customers. So mud knee deep and around there, probably picture don't do it justice, but if you stood on that side like I did the other day, my foot just went straight through into the mud. It's just absolutely sodden, the dirt as well. So huge amount. I won't probably dwell too much on that side. So I'm going to the next slide. I'm going to pause at the next slide because you may want to ask some questions, and obviously the guys are here if you want to ask anything. So as I said at the start, the story can change multiple times throughout the day. So as you can see, and again, in my update yesterday, our mobile network was 57% recovery. That's 57% of those 925 sites. When I got up at 4 this morning, that jumped to 60%. So we saw immediately a huge jump of sites back online. So as we repair and as we fix, we will see that. But sometimes throughout the day, that number's going to tip down because there'll be a fibre break, and all of a sudden the sites will go off. I think there was a break this morning as well. 6 sites offer just like that. But I felt like that we're starting to make some inroads from a customer perspective. So I know I've got 83% there, but as of this morning, that's tipped up to about 86% of our mobile customers. Active mobile customers are able to use their phone, compared to, when those first few days of going through the hurricane. So I'm really pleased that we're making good progress, but clearly I want to stress what we're doing today is interim. It's not a rebuild today. This is a fragile fix until we have commercial power, until we have the pole infrastructure back up. This is fragile, and I know that's not a great story for me to tell, but I much prefer to tell you the truth. I think that is the reality. We're going to see breaks every single day. So we're pushing hard. From a business perspective, we're about 75% restored. And then our home internet customer, I would have touched on them earlier on at 89%. So I'm going to pause there before I touch on the humanitarian stuff. And I want to stress that the guys are here to answer any questions. I've probably talked a lot, so forgive me. But I wanted to give you a good view of the slides that I brought through.
Chairman, thank you. That was a tremendous presentation in terms of the pace and keeping our attention. And we do get a feel for what you're going through. I'm going to ask you to either repeat if you said it and I didn't capture it, or expand on what you were saying, and for you to actually possibly go further. I would use the word explore. You touched on it. You indicated that new technologies, fragile, you closed by saying that, and they're not going to give us the strength of bandwidth. So all of what you said in that section around transport network impact coming through to new technologies, I believe I would like to hear, and I was already getting comments from individuals who would like to understand a lot more in this area. The impact of having your transport network down, what it means to your customers, what it means to you, even in, I don't mind where you go. We're trying to understand. And this committee, apart from the chairman needing to go and service his constituents that you spoke about, we would like to go slowly and understand that.
Great questions, and I think some obvious questions. As I was going through the presentation, I was trying to do a pace and get to the questions, so I think it's great. So if I probably break it down in where we are in terms of technology today. So fibre, for us, for Digicel, in terms of a network perspective, will still provide the fastest experience possible. So that is fibre to the site, which obviously then emanates into your mobile device. So today we would be familiar with the symbol LTE on our mobile phone. We've had that since, I think, 2015. It was when I came to the Caribbean. I think it was 2015 we started launching the LTE network, which stands for long-term evolution. Everybody would have been familiar with 3G, but it was at the time was saying we'll be 10 times faster than 3G or something at the time it was talked about. So that for Jamaica is still our fastest experience possible. On island, so it is critical that we restore and get people back on their mobile device using their LTE network. How we will do that today is restoring the fibre network, fibre to the sites, and that today we rely on ourselves. So we have our own infrastructure, and we also utilise, in particular, the south and north ring through Flow's transport network. So that's what it is. From other technology, so we're using microwave and satellite, or low orbit satellites, which is the Starlink satellite. So they don't have the capacity today to give us the bandwidth, to give us the experience that you would normally use prior to the hurricane. I think that will improve over the years with technology. I think that's a fact of life. Technology moves very fast, which is why all of us like working in this industry. We don't sit still ever. So technology has evolved and it goes faster. So I think that will improve. Today we're using it as a great way of offering some redundancy where there is, in essence, there's no transport network. If you think about the cable network, we're using satellite or microwave as a version of the transport network to give you an experience, whilst I know that experience is not your LTE experience, but certainly more akin to somewhere around your 3G experience you would have had 10 years ago. But I go back, it is critical that people are able to make a phone call and tell somebody I'm all right anywhere in the world, clearly as well. So I think we're trying to recover that. Obviously, it's within our gift to recover our own network, and we rely on our transport partner to recover their network as well. What we have done is looking at building out some other fibre routes I talked about earlier on the North Coast. We've dragged our own fibre to give us some immediate connectivity to those sites and those customers as well. I would stress it's not on the pole, so it is still very fragile as well. So restoring the fibre network on the transport side to the sites is critical. Restoring what I would call the last mile. So whilst it's not a mile, it's that last leg of fibre between the brain of the network into a customer's home or to a business, because I might restore the transport network today. I don't know if forgive me if I talked about Montego Bay. So getting the Bevan Avenue brain up is great. So make sure it works from a power perspective, and obviously it's transmitting data. The next thing we have to do is work with the individual customers to walk the last mile. it's not a mile of stress here, but we call it that, because they might have a fibre break between the brain and the premises, so we need to go and splice the fibre, but we don't know there's a break until you bring everything on. And as I said earlier on, it might be multiple breaks, again, until you go and do that. So maybe some of the BPO sectors, I spoke to a couple of them. I spoke to ITEL last night, Yoni Epstein, and he called me and said, thank you so much, he got us back online. So we're starting to restore the last mile fibre breaks as well. Now, some customers, unfortunately, have had massive infrastructure damage. So they're having to think about, well, do I need to move to a new premises? And then one of our customers, Contact 360, unfortunately, they've had massive damage on there. So they've gone to a temporary home. So we've obviously had to run a temporary cable to the new temporary home to try and get industry working as well. So, and I guess I'm giving you some broad brush answers to some of the questions. So how do we get industry working? Because that's also on my brain at the moment, because we need the economy to start working. We need people to start earning money, because, you know, the reality is we've come so far as a country. I don't want to see us go backwards, and I know we've got immense devastation, absolutely, we need to recover. But what's within our Digicel's gift is to get the connectivity and the communication working as quickly as possible. You know, and then we'll touch on our humanitarian side, because I know you know us from a foundation perspective, absolutely, but I can't stop, can't sleep at the moment. None of us have slept, because we need to get the connectivity up. Whilst it might be a bit fragile at the moment, it's critical we get that working. So some of the sites we're only starting to restore in the west. So Westmoreland, Hanover, St Elizabeth, they're the ones we're having to utilise the microwave and satellite technology, and also dialing up the towers to broader reach. Can I interim get broader reach also from a customer perspective? There's a lot of strands going on. A stress, we definitely need the commercial power on without stating the obvious. We need the network back fully energised, and we have a great relationship with Hugh and the team, Errington, Rick. You know, I think they're doing a great job of trying to recover that network as quickly as possible. You know, so we push and implore, and we have a great daily stand-up with them at, you know, at 6 a.m. every single morning. Where are you going? So we know where they're restoring. You know, and there are things that, because Hugh came just after Beryl last year, and I built up a good relationship with him and the team to make sure we're clear on where they're going, when they're going. We need to follow the polls. We need to restore. These locations will get commercial power. You know, he said to me today, just before the press conference, that MBJ Airport has now got commercial power. So I'm ringing up all of our customers, and just so you know, you're getting commercial power, so you can start trading, selling your goods and wares, and getting, your coffers working again, so to speak, as well. So.
I'm listening. A lot of people are paying attention to what you're saying. In terms of Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and Hanover, using what we refer to as old technology, the microwave technology, and linking that with what we would refer to as modern technology. You've explained the weakness, the fragility of this. It's perfectly understood at this time. What would your timelines be for using microwave, old technology, Starlink new, combining both, and bringing back Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and Hanover? I'm not speaking about St. James. The chairman is here to represent that, and I know other people in the room may have a bias too, but we protect all. But I just want to get a feel for that, because that's what people want to understand. And I must tell you, we are this morning, we didn't get a chance to look at this, so we had our own concerns in terms of how we were going to proceed as a committee to get the best use of time.
Hey, morning, everyone. In terms of the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, and Hanover, to your point, what we're actually doing is bringing sites on using Starlink. So, to your point, with the fiber infrastructure so damaged, we have to look at alternate means. Microwave technology to bring them back to sites, bring them back to the core, deploy Starlink on the sites, bring them back via satellite down. That is on the way. Within the next 2 weeks, we hope to recover, or have recovered to 75% the parishes of Westmoreland. St. Elizabeth, which is already recovered up to Santa Cruz. We're actually going into the Black River, passing of Black River today, tomorrow. And in Hanover, we're already recovered in Hopewell Hill, Sandy Bay, and we're moving south into Hanover. We already recovered on Daniel Beach, which is midway between Hanover and Westmoreland. So work is ongoing. As Stephen alluded to, the significant challenge there is the backhaul infrastructure, the fiber. So if you look at the network as a hub and spoke, we take from the access back to the core and we transport the core via fiber. That would have been damaged on segments of Hanover going into Montego Bay and Westmoreland going into St. Elizabeth. So what we have to do now is rework the microwave for some, where we can, because again, you're limited by the backhaul of satellite. So we work the microwave to our key pops. I don't know if it's in the slide here, but Shafton in Westmoreland, where one of our key microwave locations are, was severely impacted. The tower was bent in half, and that's an SDH tower. An SDH tower means that it's actually built up to Category 4. It was bent in half. So we now have to, yes, and we have the pictures. So we now have to look at redirecting some of those links. Chemshot in St. James, 2 towers, 3 towers were there, 2 remain now. 1 was also bent in half. So we're working with those nuances, looking at redirecting microwaves where we can to bring it back into St. James. Otherwise, they're Starlink. So within 2 weeks, we hope to achieve at least 75% of those. And I stress those 3 parishes because those were most hit. In Trelawney, we have restored up to Bounty Hall. And in St. Elizabeth, as I mentioned earlier, we have restored up to Santa Cruz, heading to Manchester. There are some challenges also on the east. I won't go into them significantly because we have those under control. It's mostly generation, refueling, ensuring that the sites keep going via generator. But the challenge really is in the west, and that's where we actually have teams now dedicated and working to restore. Thank you.
Sorry, just to enjoin something. I want a misconception, perhaps, a slight misconception, based on how we might have phrased it. Microwave in and of itself is not old technology. It is efficient in terms of from where we are. It just does not carry the capacity that the fiber carries. So it's a good starting point to transport the data, and then the fiber brings it to the core with greater efficiency. But that is just one thing. Importantly, what Bjorn just alluded to in terms of bringing on those key parishes, the St. Elizabeth, the Westmoreland, Hanover, those areas. And he spoke of Daniel Beach. And what I want to drive home is to ask a community coalition almost to protect those sites, because we would have put a significant amount of fuel at Daniel Beach to continue to operate, and it would have been taken. And I understand a circumstance where people are indeed desperate, and there's a significant gap in supply, even in respect of diesel, or generally, right? And I know that, yes, I know that efforts have been made to close that gap. But even the best of times, they would have taken it. But these are the worst of times, and they're taking it and it is impacting a grouping way beyond normal. So those are the type of issues that we want to address. You spoke of Mount Airy. Well, you didn't speak of it, but Mount Airy is one such that we would have put 150 gallons of diesel. Daniel Beach is in Hanover, Hanover Westmoreland border area. But it is part of what is a key part of the West in terms of bringing up the West. It is important. Sorry? I understand. I have none either. But so some of those are the circumstances in which we work, and we want to drive home the point to Jamaica in general that we need to form coalition around protecting those infrastructures so that a broader set of people can enjoy the benefits of the restoration uninterrupted.
I'll yield to you. Go ahead.
Chairman.
By now, you guys will understand. No, we don't have a mic problem. We don't have a mic problem. No, you didn't. But anyway, you yield to Member Azan.
To what the digital about the theft and all of that, I think we need to get the political representative involved, that they will know exactly that they can able to help your company to sell the problem for the restoration of the cell site, because a number of people are saying that the cell sites are down and they're blaming you people, but it's not your fault when persons go in and remove the diesel and all of that. It is something that we have to bring across, that these are some of the challenges that we are facing, because it's the first time hearing about that now. But it's something that we have to take up to see how best we can able to get, because communication is very important in all of what we are doing here now. You understand? So I think it's something that we have to get across, that those are some of the challenges that the company are facing.
Oh, I wanted to.
You respond.
Oh, thank you very much. Clearly, I encourage any partnership with any group whether for the political or the civil society, whichever group in any community, because I think it is important beyond just this immediate circumstance. But I want to make it clear to all of the people in Western Jamaica that Digicel has taken a particularly proactive step to attempt to restore, because we know that the electrical infrastructure, JPS's infrastructure, is significantly impacted and will take us significant amount of time to come back. We have targeted 140 plus generators in the West that will require constant fueling and servicing. Even though we had the entire island in 5 groupings with fuel depots, we put in 4 additional depots in the West in order to have a base of operation to do. And by the way, I want to take a small time out to thank President Kevin Carr of the NWC, who kindly consented to using some of his installations as a staging ground. And I want to say thanks for that to NWC. But the point that we're making is that we are putting the infrastructure in place to support the redevelopment and the reattachment of customers. And we are asking, pleading almost with John Public to help us to make that possible.
Chairman, just thinking about it, if you're putting in generators, you ever think about it that they may remove the generator also?
Sorry, that they might remove generators?
Yes.
We have had generators removed before.
Okay, so because if they remove the diesel, they will remove the generator.
Unfortunately, we have had generators removed. We have had a significant
and especially in this time here that people don't have electricity.
Yes.
And the demand for generators, that those things.
Yes.
People will remove.
We've been aided and abetted by the bad road conditions in respect of the movement. So I think we have been aided and abetted by the bad road conditions post-storm that might have prevented some of the movement of generators. No, I'm saying it's difficult to move. It's not impossible. What we're saying, based on the infrastructure or the road infrastructure, it makes it a little really hard. But what is most important to us is to have a community coalition, because no amount of law enforcement, and I thank the Commissioner of Police and I thank CTOC and CIB headquarters who have worked, closely with us, but the community coalition is the best way forward. And political, civil, whatever way, we need to organize and execute it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to speak to Mr. Morad, but quickly to Mr. Barrows. Outside of the JCF and the help that you've been getting with securing your sites, what type of security does Digicel have in place to protect these spaces?
I cannot go in detail in terms of the, yes, but there is a security infrastructure. Security is in place. The truth is, despite the best efforts, there will be difficulty. And I will tell you, if we are to employ security right throughout our sites, the price of the service would not make sense because the security cost is significant. And the infrastructure that we put in, cameras, etc., it's a significant investment, and we have yielded some amount of benefit. That is why I'm saying community coalition is the best. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Barrows. So, Stephen, Mr. Murad, thank you for being here this morning, you and your team. And you gave a very fulsome, I'm not sure you even finished, but a fulsome presentation on where we're at today. It was a lot. It was a lot to absorb, you know. It's like drinking water from a fire hose where I'm concerned. But I'm happy for it. You mentioned the Jamaicans really want to hear about when they're going to get back their mobile services and internet, etc. You know the society that we live in now. They want it now. First of all, I want to commend you and your team for where you're at now, because the truth is we had a Category 5 hurricane 2 weeks ago, something that Jamaica has never seen before. And for us to be reporting 50% mobile network, I said it changed this morning to 60, we're heading in the right direction, so your team must be commended. But unfortunately, more hurricanes are likely to come. We can have a Category 5 next year again. We can have one next week, well, God forbid. And a lot of the services that you offer, they're dependent on other people, other companies. You mentioned Flow, you mentioned GPS, because you share network and polling. Forgive me, I'm not a technical person, but you know what I mean. So there's a lot of things that are outside of your hands, where you mentioned you have to speak to GPS to say, okay, where are you going today, so we can piggyback off you. So a lot of your success is dependent on somebody else's work, which is unfortunate. You mentioned that Jamaica, Digicel Jamaica is the biggest in the network of Digicel. And you've been here for a while. You've built this fabulous building downtown. It's safe to say that you are here to stay. Now, you mentioned also that you have had a good relationship with the head of JPS post-Berry last year. So because of that relationship, things are much easier to get done now. You would agree? Now, what I want to know, and you mentioned Jamaica has no EG or UG underground network, a little. But since you're now here to stay, and you have made significant investment, and your partner, you and JPS are now friends, you lease a lot from Flow. In any of the meetings that you have had with these entities, have any of you guys, have you decided that the time has now come for us to do a network, what you call it, EG, UG, underground, because hurricanes will continue to hit Jamaica. I know it's expensive, but it's also expensive when half the country is without power, half the country is out, there's no economic activity. So I want to know what are the future plans to get some UG with Digicel, Flow, JPS, because more hurricanes will come. So it doesn't make sense, and I realize you both have the same name. Mr. Reynolds mentioned a lot of communities that work is going on and continues to go on, but everything is rooftop towers, 37 of them still down, right? There's damage to the roofs, so you have to fix the roofs before we fix these things. A tropical storm can come in 2 weeks and blow them down again, and we're gone right back to where we're coming from. So the conversation has to begin, if it has not yet started, of how we can start to put our utilities underground, regardless of the cost.
Thanks. I think that's a great and obvious question, as you can imagine. So I'll probably, if I can break it down into a couple of parts. So today is about how can we restore as quickly as possible and get the network working to a level. And I know I've touched on that, to a level. So I can enable everyday Jamaicans, almost 3 million people, can make a phone call to their neighbours, friends or family overseas. So today that's all we're focused on as an immediate collective. I have a separate work stream that's looking at what could be a different in terms of design topography. That's just, and the underground is obviously is one example of that. I have over the last few years been feeding in. There has been a government initiative to look at a national infrastructure agreement in place, and there's been a lot of work that's done on that. I'll be honest with you, we're very open, to a public-private partnership, joint ventures. We're always very open to these things, as you can imagine. But obviously, I also need to. I'm impatient, like all of my fellow Jamaican customers are as well. So I also need action. So we are looking at, as a business, what are the options for us? What is the different design? So you think about power versus fibre. Power would need deep trenching. So when I was the regional CEO, Bermuda was one of my countries. All of the core backbone is underground, because it's a very small country anyway, but everything is underground, their infrastructure. They don't have each other. But those chambers are deep. So for JPS to all of a sudden to come and dig deep, so that's not going to happen overnight. But for us, our infrastructure doesn't need to be that deep. You could micro trench, in, I don't know, at 10, 12, inches, so it doesn't need a huge tunnel. But the critical thing from my own experience is it needs to be GIS tagged, because what I don't want is all of a sudden somebody's doing some road work and all of a sudden digs and doesn't check on the map to say there is a structural ID, that's Digicel's fibre, don't dig use your machine to check, because there's machines that can check if there's a bit like if anybody's done any electrical work, you can check if it's live or not. There are machines that can check what's there. So we need, it can't be that Digicel all of a sudden just starts digging on the ground and the hopes are the best. We need policy, I think. We need urbanisation policy to help protect that, because you can imagine, I dread to think how much it would be at this point. I need to work that out, but it's not. It's in the millions and millions of, probably in the tens of millions of US to do that work. And I'm not saying that that's not important, but can't just do it on my own and then hope for the best. So we need urban planning. We need to make sure that it's tagged from a GIS perspective, so every utility infrastructure knows where it goes. So yes, it's obvious. If it's on the pole, they're tagged. So we have an agreement with JPS on the pole, so you know which is the Digicel line, because we tagged them and we know which is flow lines, we tag them. So if the JPS engineer comes along, he knows which is. So, but that's obvious because I can eyeball it. But when it's underground, that's a whole different game. So that is important in terms of a measure of protecting our infrastructure. It's not foolproof, I'll be honest with you. Water ingress. Infestation, all of those will happen. Rats in particular like to chew cables and nest out of those cables. That's somebody from Bermuda. They will tell you every single day. That's what drives them up the wall, our engineers. So those are I say this because, cause it's not like we're not thinking about it. It's not that we don't have experience around the region as well. We have a huge amount of experience in that. So we're thinking strategically. We have a separate, and this is the beauty of having the group here. My boss is only 2 floors up. He's probably sick of me if he's listening to this now, because I'm in his head every single day. And what do we need to do? We need the group's power and support to look at how do we protect ourselves better in the future as a company and a country. I'm a large employer. I have the Jamaica business has 1,000 people directly, and I probably have another 1,000 third-party contractors that rely on me every single day. The group team's almost 800 people there as well, so we're a large Jamaican employer as well. So we have a duty of care also to the country. So it's important that we do it properly. and not half a job. That wouldn't be the answer. But I think it's a great question. Whether from yourselves, listening to what it's the obvious question. How do we strengthen our networks to be more resilient, to protect our livelihoods and our communication to the outside world? So we are working on all of those things. But my immediate lens is, how do we get services restored today? But we're open to any partnership, whether it be public-private partnerships. We've discussed these things previously as well. We're definitely open for them. Joint ventures, absolutely. We're completely open. I just want people to not think, well, the easiest answer is just put everything on the ground. That needs proper planning, proper management. So we know we can protect that infrastructure, because otherwise we're not protecting it from ourselves. Somebody's just going to dig up the road. That's a fact of life, and they've not checked what's there, or put a new pole in. We've seen that today. Some of flows do have some small underground infrastructure, and the new pole's been put in quickly, and it's crashed through the underground infrastructure, so they have to rebuild around it as well. But certainly we are looking at all of those things in a completely separate work stream, because I need everybody to be not distracted by that in my team. I need them to think about every single day, wake up every single day, how do I reconnect every single Jamaican back as quickly as possible. My job with the group is to look at these other pieces of the puzzle, to look at how do we get investment, public-private partnership, joint venture, whatever that may be. Sorry, that was probably a long answer to a short question. No problem.
We're still having problems with the mic system too.
No, I just wanted to take the opportunity to add one point to Stephen's statement. So he mentioned the resiliency, or what he spoke about was resiliency on the backbone, which is the fiber, and you had mentioned the potential UG. It would be remiss of me not to mention resiliency on the access. So Stephen had mentioned that we brought in 160, I believe it was, Starlinks. We will now look at bringing that into some level of resiliency on the access network. So going back to the point of the hub and spoke, in the access you have the cell site. That cell sites, they aggregate to the backbone. By putting Starlink on that cell site, what you're effectively doing is, if you lose microwave communication or you lose fiber, you can fall back on satellite temporarily until you have the microwave or the fiber back in place. So that layer of resiliency allows you to get up quicker and recover quicker while you build back to the backbone. So I just didn't want it to be missed, because the network has to be looked at in two parts: the access side and the backbone. Both are critical. Thank you.
No, I have no problem. If you want to follow up, because I'm going in a different, I enjoy what you're doing. What you're doing is great, but I want to go in a different direction, so.
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you, Mr. Murad, right? Again, I have accepted what you have said, and I understand what you're saying. And the priority is to get back service to the residents in this country who are without connectivity, whatever, right? What I'm saying is that Digicel, which is doing excellent work 14 days after a storm, but your success is heavily dependent on external parties. That's my concern. Now, if for whatever reason JPS is unable to, they run out of poles or they run out of wiring and they can't go to St. Elizabeth, they can only go to St. Elizabeth, they can't go to Westmoreland, they can't go to St. James, does your work stop? And then you mentioned Starlink, that's a popular name these days, Starlink. What obtains now? You're saying that you're, Mr. Reynolds, forgive me, I am not like you, not very tech savvy. So just break it down to me so my the constituents, Mr. Azan's people in Clarendon who are offline can understand. In the interim, because we want indeed who can get help now, in the interim, I hear you speak about microwave and Starlink. Forgive me, Mr. Barnes and Mr. Reynolds. Just break it down for me as to what is being done now, what Digicel is doing now, what Digicel has the ability to do independently now to get persons in St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, Manchester, the connectivity that they so desperately need.
Yes. So I want to address two of the things that you have said, and I'll pass it over to Bjorn for greater detail. The first order of business is that while Stephen would have, Mr. Murad would have made reference to dependencies, he also made reference to the fact that we are acting independently, but albeit in a, we consider temporary way, because fiber is down, because poles are down, and we have gone out and we have run our own fibers in areas sometimes that we have to simply run it on the ground, in the bushes, behind the scenes, in order to maintain connectivity. So while JPSCO should resurrect their own poles or plant new poles, we have already laid infrastructure on ground, but we consider that temporary because that is, it is open to accidental damage because it's not on proper infrastructure. So we are still running independently. And if you should look at the North Coast and the infrastructure that is still down in many respects, while we have returned connectivity via our own network, no reliance on flow immediately, no reliance on JPSCO, in respect of just the raw infrastructure for fiber. That is to ensure that we have connectivity or have a restoration of connectivity, albeit temporary and fragile, because things will happen, things can happen. A man who is going through his farm or is putting back zinc on his house might create some accidental damage because some infrastructure is on the ground and we're working through. In respect of the core functionality of JPSCO providing power, that is what we are doing. We are running generators, and we have set up operations for servicing and fueling of those generators to ensure that we have power. The only uncertain part is the theft factor of people coming and removing. So when we plan for a certain cycle of how many days this should run on the diesel that we have put in, and we set it on a particular cycle and have people to go, sometimes we find that it is going off beforehand because of the borrowed fuel. Let me put it that way. Yes. And by the way, just for the record, and for all of John public to know, Digicel's fuel is dyed purple. So it has a different color. So it is known, if it is being offered to you, you know that you're receiving stolen goods. Purple. It's not an affinity for KC, just but it's just no. Okay, it's just to deter theft. So I'm going to hand it over to Bjorn to relay.
Well, so if I am to rephrase or paraphrase what I believe the question is, when will we be back to some semblance of normality? Having gone from 30% to 57, then 60% within 14 days, we forecast 75% within 2 weeks. Now, what does that look like? The parishes of St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, and St. James, because St. James was also impacted in the south, with 75% coverage restoration. What does that mean? It is stable coverage by the measures that Anthony spoke of, the refueling. What we didn't mention, and we'll take the opportunity to mention now, is solar. We're actually working with our solar partner. If you recall, coming out of Beryl, we took an initiative to go solar on some sites. We started that rollout. We have now looked to accelerate that, because what solar does is provide that renewable power that removes that reliance on the refueling and does remove that reliance on JPS. So what I'm saying here is that 2 weeks' time, we'll be back at 75%. And as we transition out of recovery into the rebuild, we can expect that, I would say by the end of the year, sometime in December, we'll be back to where we were before, Melissa. That would include some of the rebuilding. As Stephen had mentioned, we had 37 sites, mostly rooftop infrastructure, that process of rebuild has already started. One site is back on here already, believe it or not, with 8 to be completed within the next 2 weeks. So the building is happening, restoration is taking place in the background, and 2 weeks to 75%.
The question that I would want to ask now, you would notice that my head was down and I was in the phone. Persons are watching us on stream. And so the questions, really, all of this is coming in fast and furious. They are unable to, and I shouldn't say unable, but they want to hear in layman's term. For the West, especially St. James, when will they be able to use a phone? I mean, they hear all that you have been saying. They just want it in simple layman term. 1 week, 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks. So members of the St. James community, we have Digicel word that within 2 weeks' time, within 2 weeks, Mr. Morad is here, and so he's, by silence, he's confirming that within 2 weeks.
To add that if we continue to see, forgive my tone, the foolishness of intentional destruction, theft, vandalism, I'm sorry, but that would be 2 weeks is impossible. You're making the job harder than it needs to be. I'm sorry for my tone, but that will stop us.
No, Mr. Morad, we share your pain. We do understand the situation that there are unscrupulous persons who have been using the disaster to, and I would say to their benefit somewhat. And we are appealing, just as you have, to these persons to desist from doing so, because what they're actually doing really is to set back business a great deal and to inconvenience your neighbor or your brother. And so we at this time, as the committee in session, appealing to those who have ulterior motive, please, to desist from that. But notwithstanding, we are looking forward to that 2 weeks. And we hope, we pray that what you are feeling, that it will be something of the past somewhat. Mr. Reynolds, you had something to add? No? Okay. So we go to the next person.
I heard what Mr. Murad said. I heard what Mr. Reynolds said. And Mr. Reynolds said within 2 weeks, which there may be a little gray area. But the good news, Mr. Chairman, is that Mr. Murad said that most are not all, correct me if I'm wrong, of the parts are the things that are needed to build out these places are in Jamaica. So that's a very good place. That was an excellent place to start. So possibly the 2 weeks or the end of the year to 100%, the end of December 2025, we should be able to get back to pre-Hurricane Melissa standards at Digicel. All right.
I want to make this point. We're on a positive note, and what we've heard today is good. My concern, though, is as a rural member of parliament, when you indicate and you use numbers like 75% will have access, sometimes it deals with the major town centers, and then you have hundreds of districts that fall in that 1%, 2% of your customer base. And the National Water Commission behind you would understand that the 75%, I respect it, I applaud it, and I must say, last night at 6:30, I arrived in Holland Bamboo and Lacovia, and I did get service there. And I must say, the individuals I was meeting with, when they saw it come up, they were surprised. That happened last night at 6:30, deep into the West, and I was surprised. But I must say that when you use those numbers, some of us will still not, I don't want to use the word befooled. I don't believe you have come here to, and I want to stay very positive. But we understand what those numbers mean. If you put on the 10 major towns of Westmoreland, you may be up at 90%. And you still have hundreds of individuals who rely on your infrastructure to make a livelihood, for health, for education. This committee this morning has not spoken about so many things that are affected and that rely on you. To put our primary schools, deep rural, back in position, we must have your service. And so when you say 75%, Mr. Reynolds, I'm not being unkind. I'm not throwing cold water on it. I'm not saying you're not working hard, Mr. Burrows, as you pull your fiber through at night on the road. I do see you, and we acknowledge you. But the 75%, Mr. Chairman, for us deep rural, it has to be broken down. And the National Water Commission understands that.
If I can, and thanks for that, and we have a lot of staff members whose family was in Lacovia. My CFO, Stacey, she rang me in the gridlock of traffic the other night, so she was very happy that they got service for her family in Lacovia. But I wanted to sort of... Yeah, sorry, I've lost it. Every day is exactly the same. There's a film called Groundhog Day. I think we're just fortunate. But I think it's important to distinguish what Digicel Jamaica also is. We're the largest foundation in Jamaica, which me and Joy have the privilege and honour of being on. We're 20 years as a foundation. We've been on the ground. I was in middle quarters up in visiting some of the people worst hit. So whilst we might not be personally directly impacted, but every single customer, I promise you, is important. I want to reconnect everybody. Doesn't matter where you live, whether you feel that maybe you're in a smaller community. The most important thing for us, that's the thing that keeps us awake every minute of the night, is to make sure we reconnect everybody in Jamaica. That's, I promise you, and anybody who's listening, that's all we think about every single day, because we've been there. We know how important it is to hear people to make a phone call, go on the TikTok and the Instagram, because clearly that's what everybody in Jamaica wants to do these days. But people make a living out of these things. Wherever, I think most people in the room, maybe apart from Brandon, are of a particular age where we wouldn't have been able to make money from TikTok, etc. as well. So it's important that we reconnect everybody, not just the communication piece, because that's important as well. Maybe the family is overseas, but being able to get commerce working, farming communities, Black River is unrecognisable. But even when we went to Falmouth, the amount of devastation seen there is something else. So we're also committed as a foundation. We are helping people where we can do and going around all of the communities, and we won't stop, because that's an important side of Digicel, which isn't something you read in the newspaper. We don't plaster that everywhere, because that's important to us, that we get out there and visit our customers. The amount of work of smart classrooms that we've done, we've got 21 fully enabled smart classrooms. Education is really important, special needs also from a foundation perspective. We're proud of what we do in the foundation, and we don't take that job lightly. Yes, like Joe, we wear one hat, we've got a business to run, but we have an absolute duty and care and obligation from what we do for our people as well, and we won't stop until we get everybody reconnected. So I wanted to just make sure I touched on the foundation work, because I know that's sort of the end of the presentation. My last slide is there's always hope, because I think that's what came apparent to me visiting the people and the spirit of the Jamaican people and the kids that we saw. There is absolutely always hope, and we won't be defeated by this. So that's probably the end of the presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Burrows. Oh, sure. Let me just wrap one thing here. my CEO just spoke about the foundation and its reach. And I've had the privilege of being one of those founding employees of Digicel. And I know our deep rural reach and the joy that we got from our engagement in deep rural and what might have set us apart from the competitor, the incumbent then. What I will say to you, Member Robertson, is that sorry, the commitment that you are seeing here is not simply a commercial commitment. It is a commitment from our founding principles about connectivity. I have responsibility for a cadre of engineers and support services right throughout. Digicel is connected to and peopled by individuals who come from those communities who would not leave us, who would not cause us.
You're through, Mr. Burris?
I'll yield to Member Robertson because I wanted to make the point that there is a commitment from us to go to the nook and crannies in those communities. I have driven those communities right after I started, before roads were cleared. We started to make contact with people who are very important to us, people who have reached out to us over many years, people who will still have their numbers after many years, trying to reach them because there's a commitment from us to make connection. I understand the issue of 75% and population coverage, etc. But we also understand the deep intricacies of communities and their connectivity and what it means to all of us. That's what I'll say.
So we are going to take 2 more questions because we also have NWC here with us. If we still need to get we still need to get updates from Digicel just the same. We can either take it by way of a report or we can invite them back if we see the need to. But we're going to take these 2 last questions, have them excused, and then we take NWC. All right?
The question is to Ms. Clark. I noticed the community reach to date. Hanover, there is no, we have not been into Hanover, that is hard hit.
Chris, thank you very much. We are scheduled to be in Hanover this week.
Okay. And I noticed that you visited my neighbor, Christian, and you didn't come to my side.
And which side is your side, may I ask?
Clarendon side.
We are coming, for sure.
Okay, because, you know, one of the things that I observe that the different groups are going into different communities.
Right.
And we are moving into just the main area, and these people get it every day, while the people in the hills not getting anything at all. I think one of the things that we need to do is that we have to have a coordination, that you will see that this area, there's no agency or nobody visit those communities to get even a package.
So we have been working with communities and working with persons on the ground who have first-hand knowledge. And while you might see the cities and the communities and the main centers.
I'm not saying about you, you know. I'm
not
saying that all.
I'm saying to all, yes. And I know you're speaking to me specifically. But Digicel Foundation definitely has been working with key stakeholders on the ground who are intimately involved in the community personnel and know who might be shut-ins. In fact, some of what we do recently when we were in Catherine Hall in Montego Bay, we went to the riverside, not just stayed in the schools and the churches that persons were lined up getting stuff, but we were going into the bankside, into the riverside, at the mouth of the river where they were individuals, shut-ins, that ordinarily would not have access and would not have the capacity to come to us. So it is not consistent that we go to these community centers and do that alone. We make an effort. It is part of what we do to go into the shut-ins, into the communities, and liaise with the persons on the ground who will know who are the persons that would not have been able to make it to the town squares and to the town centers. So we're very happy to be part of this recovery exercise, and we are confident of the strength and the resilience of the Jamaican people, and we know that together we will rise even stronger.
Just a suggestion. Our churches touch a lot of people out there because different denominations and so forth.
Yes.
What relationship you have with the churches, and you have principals at some of the schools who know those children who, from before the hurricane,
right,
they're having problem about eating and all of that you could be able to get some of the principals and all of that to assist you in all
Absolutely.
this
So as Stephen would have alluded in his communication earlier, we have a great relationship with our teachers, our schools. Education is a big part of what we do, and we work very closely with our schools, our churches, and our special needs. In fact, we are making special efforts to send packages and care packages that include essential items, food, hygiene kits, lanterns, solar lanterns, a number of things. We're working with the government on the environmental side and giving health care products using the schools, the principals, the teachers, the churches. We know that we cannot do it alone, and one of our big assets is that we believe in the power of partnerships. So we're working with all the agencies. We're not opposed to working with schools and churches. We've done that, and we'll continue to do that to ensure that we have further reach in all of the communities.
So what about the political representatives?
Pardon me?
What about the political representatives?
The political representatives as well.
Okay. I didn't hear that part of it.
Oh, we do. We absolutely do work with our political representatives.
I am very... Last night, a pastor sent me some things at about 11 o'clock. I don't know why she believed that I was not sleeping. To give me a list.
Because the pastors don't sleep themselves. They're like us.
Okay, but a member from my constituency said that nothing can happen to politicians. The hurricane, the hurricane didn't come for politicians, so it didn't get any hurt. But I'm very concerned, especially the children who are out there, and you will see them, and you can feel the hunger, because sometimes some of the parents who will get the package, some of them will sell it to and the children don't get anything to eat. So I think it's something that we have to look at how best we can able to, especially the principals. They would know those children who every day they will come to school, and the only time they attend school is because they know that they will get a hot meal.
And you're exactly correct, and that's why today we're packing 12,000 care packages, and the teachers in the schools are a vehicle that we'll be using. They have intimate knowledge of the students with the greatest need, and like you have recommended, that's something we are doing as we speak.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to repeat. We've been on track. The presentation has given us a lot of insight. It has helped us tremendously to communicate, and we say thank you on my part. The 75% that you're going to be at is very, very good. It's a huge number to see those three western parishes at 75%, and I specifically, because Montego Bay can skew the numbers. St. James can skew the numbers. That's why I keep going back to it to say Westmoreland, Hanover, St. Elizabeth, your commitment is 75%. That is where we start, and that's where we end. The use of old, new technology, whatever you do to get there, is we are laymen. So we may use and say things that may not sound to professional engineers and trained individuals as it should. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So let me take time to say thank you to the Digicel group for being here, giving us a vast amount of information that we did not have before. Now that we have it, also John Public is aware of it somewhat, and the message will be passed. What we're taking from this is to say to those persons who are by ulterior motive doing what they're not supposed to do. We are beseeching, we're begging, we're imploring of you, stop, so that the country, in particular the communities that have been hit hardest, they will be able to come back on stream where communication is concerned, and also that notwithstanding all of that, if it doesn't happen, we will be seeing communication from Digicel services up and running within 2 weeks. Thank you very much for coming. We will be calling on you, maybe at short notice, maybe notice enough to give you time, but be prepared because you serve not yourself, but the country of Jamaica and your clientele. Thank you. You are excused. This time we will ask Water Commission to take the front seat. With the youngster, yeah. You can bring your name tag with you just the same, please. Yeah, somebody will take those. Can you imagine that? Thank you very much, NWC, having sat through that lengthy presentation by Digicel. I think it was worth it because you two are clients. At this time, we will ask Dr. Philippa Campbell Francis just to introduce the others. Oh, Ms. Talia, you're going to take the lead.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, right. Name is Talia Gibson. I'm the Senior Director of Water Policy and Monitoring Branch at the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change. Today we are here to discuss the NWC's progress in the restoration efforts due to Hurricane Melissa. We have today Dr. Campbell Francis, Vice President Operations, Mr. Charles Buchanan, and Mr. Delano Williams, both in communications, public relations. And I will ask Dr. Campbell Francis to make the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. This afternoon's presentation, I want to talk a little about the extent of the damage, how it is that we do our assessments, what are our communication channels, the progress that we're making. We'll talk a little about our customers and the costs to the NWC. So the National Water Commission, just to set the context, we have over 1,000 facilities that are electricity dependent. We have over 551,000 customers, but we do understand that there are persons who are otherwise connected, and so we provide service to over 75% of the population in terms of coverage of the island. The overall impact of Melissa, it has been very challenging for us. And it has been challenging based on how our network is placed. So I know MP Robertson would have spoken earlier about our rural communities. And so as we talk about what the impact has been, we want to say that initially, after the passing of Melissa, all our customers were out. But we have a good team of workers, and so our assessments would have started the following morning. And what we worked to do was immediately to bring back our most important, I don't want to use most important, but those facilities such as our hospitals and schools and our town centers and so on. So when we started getting back online, we would have started with the major towns. So when you consider towns like parishes such as Casey, St. Catherine, Clarendon, St. Mary, Portland, St. Anne, those parishes on the eastern side of the island, we were able to bring back quite effectively, I'd say, in a few days. So as MP spoke about the percentages, so we are currently, in terms of restoration, as at this morning, at 75%. But we are cognizant of the fact, in fact, we had a lengthy discussion, and those are the discussions that we've been having, that while we have a 75% restoration, we have to now consider the 25%, which are our people in the deep rural areas. So when we talk about 1,000 systems and what our assessments look like, there are two phases of assessments that we do. The first phase of assessment is morning after. The field teams, the operations teams, the people on the ground, they go out and do an assessment of a physical look and see of what the facilities look like. We have been able to do, for that first phase assessment, of our 760 primary facilities, we have been able to cover all of them. So there are 760 that include our tanks and so on, but in terms of primary facilities, it's 600. 760, and then we have the number 1,000. So it's 3 sets of numbers because we then have lift stations and we also have tanks and so on. So we may get a system back online, but then we have to ensure that the relift is back online, that the tanks are operating, whether we're then going to gravity 2 and the areas we're going to. So that's why the numbers differ. So 600 primary facilities, 760, and then 1,000 include the other sets, our tanks, as well as our relift stations. So for the initial assessment of all the facilities, there are now only 6 facilities that we have not been able to reach, and those are in some rural areas where the roads are impassable. One that...
Remember, you have to wait until the mic is turned on.
It will take a long time for me to get accustomed.
No, it won't. Just be patient. Your mic is on now.
I will. I'll try my best, Chairman. If you can tell us the 6, because already the questions are coming in from some of my colleagues who are not here, and they want these questions asked, just to know, for example, the 6. So that would be 6 of the 1,000. That would be 6 of the 760 and 6 of the 600.
No, it's actually 6 overall. I know that content in St. Elizabeth is one of them because that facility is in the middle of, that facility is off of Santa Cruz, but the area is completely flooded. So we have seen the facility, but the area is flooded, and therefore we have not been able to go in to do the electromechanical assessments. And we also have, the other 5 are in Hanover, Westmoreland. I will tell you shortly what those 5 are.
Sorry, madam. Is it, sorry, I heard you say Hanover, Westmoreland. Is it Hanover and Westmoreland?
Hanover and Westmoreland.
Okay.
So the other 5 are in that region. I'll communicate those in a minute. So we've done the first phase assessments. The second phase assessment is when our technical teams then go back, and then they're able to say what we can start, what we cannot start because of issues that we're having. So there are 200 facilities. And remember now, these 200 would be in the worst hit areas. And these are the facilities that would be in the hinterlands, in the country areas, because most of the facilities, if you go parish by parish, most facilities that serves the town centers. So last night, for example, we got Great River back up. Great River serves Montego Bay, Catherine Hall, and we have some areas there on the flat. We had a challenge at Martha Brae as well. And so Martha Brae, both these facilities are now on generator, by the way, so you do not still get 100% capacity. So like Martha Brae, like Montego Bay, Great River would be running at 50% of capacity. When you look at that space, the elevated areas, and that is why we spoke about the lift station. So while we're able to fill the tanks at Terminal and Appleton Hall, we're then going to have to lift. The situation as it relates to the JPS power is really bad because for most of those 200 facilities not yet checked, that is where the 35%, the 25% of the customers would be. They not yet back online, sorry, not checked. In addition to that, we also have systems, and this is also a discussion that we're having, that even though we have done the assessment for the plants, once we start pumping, it is when we are going to know the damage to some of the pipelines that are not major transmission means. And so there are some communities in our rural areas, west rural, east rural areas in St. Thomas, where it's just no days since you're putting back water on the line that you are able to see that you are going to also have to deal with your pipeline infrastructure. The major ones you see right away. So your Montego Bay line, your Martha Brae. Other challenges that we've had, and this is significant every time we have a hurricane, but it is now worsened, it is the blockage of your intakes, the heavy siltation in terms of what comes down into your intakes. You have a major intake such as Bogue. We were actually able to get Bogue up by day 3. That serves St. Anne straight into St. Mary, Port Maria. What happens with a system like that is that when you have the blockages at the intake, and it was very bad, it takes a number of days and all teams to just converge on that. So we have the blockages of the intakes, and then we have the smaller facilities now. And these are the rural facilities where most of the challenges are, where we have areas like East Rural in KSA. And for those systems, especially those on the elevated sections, we have not been able to complete cleaning, because cleaning of waterways, cleaning of impoundments, cleaning of tanks, those are a significant part of what we have to do to get our rural systems back online, which is really where the 25% is. There are some parishes with pipelines in waterways based on how those systems were set up initially. Those pipelines would have been dislocated and therefore would have to be replaced. And in some instances, we would have actually removed them before the hurricane. But our restoration process started from day one. It has been very tedious, but the team has been working very hard. I want to make the point, and I'm not going to talk about the 75% in terms of where we are. I'm going to look at the percentage in terms of those that we need to, those communities. So for Hanover Westmoreland, the Logwood facility we now have a rented generator in that space because the generator that was there before got damaged. Now, while you're able to serve some of your customers, you find that we are getting some assistance from some external partners, GSD Dawn, I think it's Global Support and Development, and that connection was made through ODPEM. So what they've pretty much done is for the parishes of Hanover and Westmoreland, they would have docked their ship at Point Lucy, and they would have provided for us 6 4,000-gallon tanks that we have deployed to communities, 2 in Hanover and 4 in Westmoreland. They would have supplied us as well with about 800 10-liter bottles for the persons in the communities, and that is now a filling station as well. So one of the things that we've been doing is trying to put filling stations in all the regions and parishes that are severely impacted so that the West can support the East. So, for example, between St. James, Trelawney, Hanover, Westmoreland, we have sent 6 water trucks into that space. And we have sent an additional water truck into Manchester, St. Elizabeth. So it means that there is some assistance provided. That should be 4 water trucks, actually, and 2 other trucks to be able to move the tanks and water and so on with some makeshift effort. So we are moving people as well into those areas to help with the assessment along with our partners and just really trying to see how quickly we can get those communities back on board. So we have filling stations. We have 6 filling stations between Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, Trelawney. We have in Manchester, St. Elizabeth, we have 1 at Luano. And when I say filling station, it's filling station for water trucks, but we have also set up filling stations like a 2-point location, same place on property, but we have set up a space for our customers who will have a truck or a van or who just want to do bottles or a small tank and so on. So we have set up wayside filling stations in addition to what we have done in Hanover, Westmoreland with those bladder tanks that we got on from GSD, who is providing some help. The restoration for Trelawney is at 59.8% because Martha Bray is now back up. Our priority has been the hospitals, and it meant that, and all of these systems we're talking about. So for Martha Bray, it's on generator. For Luano, that's Manchester, St. Elizabeth, it's on generator. So most of these systems, the NWC has to deploy generators from the east, or what we have been doing as well is to rent generators. Westmoreland, we are actually at 28% because Westmoreland is one of the worst hit. I'm going to see if I can read the percentages from this list of the worst hit areas. So St. Mary is still at 55.4%, but that's primarily due to lack of electricity. St. Elizabeth, 28.1%. Westmoreland is at 43%, and the Hanover is at 63.3%. So our worst parishes now are St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland in terms of trying to get recovery. What we're doing with the additional trucks, because there are some places that is going to be a while until we get those generators in, that we will be able to serve them. So what we have been doing is really trying as much as possible to truck to the communities using the water trucks, but also having some of those people fill up from the filling stations that we have set up. The greatest problem for us is the lack of generators. Because if we had enough generators, it means that we could get most of these systems back in, because most of them did not have electromechanical damages. there is a provision that we have made in our initial estimates for pipeline replacements, because when you look at areas like Black River and so on, once you drive through the area, you're able to see where the pipelines are dislocated. Those assessments would not have been completed because we can't. Some, yes, but we can't see everything and we won't know right now. But we know we are going to have to spend significant sums that we're going to have to put into replacement of pipelines and replacing of individual customer connections, which is another matter. Outside of that, one of the issues we had was the fueling of our tanks. It has improved somewhat, but when you have your water trucks having to join the line to get gas to deliver water to an area, then a trip that is supposed to take 30 minutes actually takes 2 hours. So that has significantly slowed the movement of our trucks and so on. But we have put some recommendations on the table for those who would want to assist us, that if there were solutions that would provide temporary filling stations for gas and so on, it would be useful. In terms of generators, we have done a critical list of generators that we need. That list has approximately 100 generators on there, but we currently, and that is in addition to the 50 that we already have deployed out there. So right now it is really for us to try to get generators in and then moving as necessary as systems come back on to be able to cover those rural communities. But it is extremely challenging, and we continue to work as best as we can. We have been communicating with ODPEM, the Ministry of Health, all the agencies, the utilities, UNICEF, just some other agencies who we meet with from time to time, and they advise on the kind of help that they are able to provide. The plans for the customers, as it is now, that is under consideration, but we had in fact started an amnesty for our commercial customers who were disconnected, for them to get on board, where we would give them a 50% write-off and time to pay the difference. We are extending that amnesty another month in the hope that it will help some of our people in our business communities to get back on. So in terms of recovery and resilience, we want to expand the generator program and the mobile backup fleet, look at alternative renewable energy solutions for critical facilities, and this is in the going forward, looking at our business continuity and communication plans across the regions, because I want to say it has not been perfect, because a lot of what we saw, we knew on the morning after the hurricane, that there were some specific things, there were things that were new to us. So for example, in a community like, say, Hanover, Westmoreland, when I visited with the staff, when they are displaced, you don't expect 90% of your staff to be displaced. So then you now have to make arrangements to consider when they're going to be able to even contribute to the workspace. And then you're still pushing to get the offices open so that customers can see that you can still come and have some activity going, and so on. And we acknowledge the tremendous collaboration and effort of our staff, the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change, JPS, the NWA, and all other partners in the restoration of services. And we are committed to working as hard as we can to get our rural communities back on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Doc, how are you? Okay. I never knew you were so centered. I thought you were still in the East serving us. We will miss you. You spoke about your dislocation of your staff members. Let's start there so that we can understand quickly what has taken place and how difficult it is for you, St. Elizabeth, and I'll keep going back, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, and in this case, yes, the big rivers and supply systems, St. James and Trelawney. What percentage of your staff members would you say, were totally unable to provide any sort of commercial service to the National Water Commission from these 5, 6 parishes? Because you are structured mainly on a parish basis.
Apologies. In terms of our staff members affected, 90% of our staff members were affected. We're from minor to major damages, but in terms of major damages, we'd say the percentage is about 30%, as in roof missing. Some persons would have said they have no house at all. Just persons who have significant damage and have to be staying with neighbors. I spoke, for example, with 2 staff members. One had lost her home completely. She had lost her roof, and when she called in the builder to replace the roof, the builder said, no, a roof cannot go on this structure, and that is in St. Elizabeth. So I've met persons like that, and then I met another young lady, this is in Westmoreland, who lost her house completely and was staying with neighbors, and she was now coming to the office to spend the days at the office because we had not yet started operations because the roof of the office itself was also damaged. So it is bad. And we have gathered the list of affected staff members. We have about 100 staff members with serious impact. Yes, from St. Elizabeth, Hanover, Westmoreland, and a few in Montego Bay.
Chairman, we heard about the 1,000 facilities. We understand the amount of generators you still require and need to procure. This committee will be looking at procurement in the very, very near future in a holistic manner, not specific to National Water Commission or any agency. What percentage of the island do you cover in terms of water supply, portable water supply?
75%.
And the other 25 is parish council and
rural water.
Rural water and parish council.
Yes, and there are some private suppliers as well.
So you're at 75%.
Coverage, yes.
I look at the numbers of your total customers. Maybe it's 400,000, maybe it's 150 still out. And then it breaks down in parish by parish. And thank you for this information. It is very useful. And I'm sure all parliamentarians will have a good look at it, and we will make it available to them. What is your timeline for these 5, 6 parishes that were hit by a Category 5 or affected in a major manner? Because, for example, St. Thomas, West St. Thomas, we know that we have issues. Nothing in comparison. We have the Easington water system now without ground protection at risk, and that supplies Kingston and Bull Bay all the way through there. That's going to be a major problem if we lose it. How many of your existing 1,000 installations are still at risk? Power supply is one, because if your power supply is out and it creates damage to your electrical systems, that could take months to bring back. Some of us do understand these issues. What do you believe is your timeline for bringing back your individuals, customers, not in service at this time, not with water supply, in the 5 major parishes? How do you believe you will scale up that delivery? Because it is not sounding very positive because of the difficulties. You are an underground system, you are in rivers, your issues are different from the, for example, the digital providers.
As I said, right now the primary issue is getting our plants running, our JPS facilities. What we're doing, we're trying to bring in generators. So we have been renting generators, a very expensive cost to do per facility, but we know the importance of that. We have rented over the last week an additional 11 generators. So it is our intention until we are able to procure, and we're looking at a timeline of 2-3 weeks for that. In the interim, we are trying to do as best as possible to get the rental generators into those spaces. And I must add that JPS is working with the NWC as one of their primary customers. So if you notice there